bustling financial heart of Hong Kong, where billions move through digital veins every second. A silent revolution in cybercrime was reaching a terrifying peak. This was not a traditional bank vault robbery or a physical heist involving masks and sirens. Instead, it was a digital ghost story that would eventually cost a multinational corporation $25 million, or approximately 200 million Hong Kong dollars. The victim was not a malfunctioning computer system or a breached firewall, but a single unsuspecting employee working within the firm's finance department. In early 2024, the world learned just how dangerously thin the line between physical reality and digital simulation had become. This specific incident, which the Hong Kong police force would later publicize in February as a dire warning to the global business community, has since redefined our fundamental understanding of corporate security and human trust. The deception began with a seemingly standard corporate email. The employee received a message that appeared to come directly from the company's chief financial officer, who was based in the United Kingdom. The tone of the message was professional, urgent, and heavily shrouded in secrecy. The email detailed a confidential corporate move, a secret acquisition that required immediate and substantial capital transfers. To the employee, the request was certainly massive, but in the high-stakes world of international finance, high-level secret acquisitions are often the primary drivers of corporate growth. However, a glimmer of suspicion remained in the employee's mind. Modern workers are frequently trained to look for typos, strange sender addresses, or unusual requests in phishing attempts, and this staff member was initially cautious enough to question why such a significant financial directive was being handled through a mere text-based medium. The skepticism of the employee was exactly what the sophisticated attackers had anticipated. To erase any shadow of doubt, they invited the staff member to a group video conference call to discuss the logistics of the transfer. When the employee joined the meeting, any lingering fears were instantly extinguished by the sight of familiar faces. On the screen were the high-definition likenesses of the UK-based CFO and several other recognizable colleagues from different departments. They were not just static images or pre-recorded loops. They were moving, speaking, and interacting in what seemed to be real time. This was a masterfully executed multi-person deepfake, a technological feat that completely bypassed traditional human intuition. The digital avatars maintained an impeccable professional demeanor, giving direct orders and asking specific, relevant questions about the transfer process. They utilized the company's internal jargon and adhered perfectly to the expected corporate hierarchy, creating a psychological trap that was impossible to see through with the naked eye. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Under the watchful eyes of what appeared to be his highest-ranking superiors, the employee felt a profound sense of duty and urgency. He was explicitly instructed to keep the transaction strictly confidential to ensure the absolute success of the supposed secret acquisition. Over the course of just a few hours, the employee methodically followed the precise instructions provided during the video call. He executed 15 separate transfers, moving the funds into 5 different local bank accounts across Hong Kong. By the time the session concluded, the total amount drained from the company's coffers reached an estimated $25.6 million. The scammers had effectively used silence as their primary weapon, ensuring the victim would not seek internal verification from other colleagues until the money was already long gone. The illusion held for several days, maintained by the false sense of security provided by the visual confirmation of the meeting. It was only when the employee finally contacted the company's head office in the United Kingdom for a routine follow-up regarding the next steps of the acquisition that the crushing reality set in. The actual CFO had no knowledge of any secret acquisition or any recent video calls with the Hong Kong branch. The people the employee had seen and heard were nothing more than sophisticated mathematical models, pixels and algorithms trained on hours of publicly available footage from YouTube, LinkedIn, and past corporate webinars. The money was now dispersed through a complex network of accounts, making recovery nearly impossible. This was the dawn of a new era where the old adage of seeing is believing was no longer a reliable defense against the shadows of the digital world. The staggering $25 million loss in Hong Kong serves as a chilling testament to the rapid evolution of what experts call CEO fraud. In the past, these schemes were relatively primitive, often relying on business email compromise, where a hacker would simply spoof a superior's email address to request an urgent confidential payment. As corporate security teams began to recognize the telltale signs of phishing, misspelled names, or slightly off-brand email headers, the criminals adapted. We've entered a new era defined by the deepfake as a service economy. On the dark web, the tools required to create high-fidelity clones of human voices and faces are becoming increasingly commoditized. What once required a team of specialized animators can now be purchased and deployed by any malicious actor with sufficient capital. This transition from text to multimedia deception is not entirely without precedent. In 2019, the CEO of a UK energy firm was famously tricked by an AI-cloned voice into transferring $243,000. At the time, that incident was viewed as an outlier, a freak occurrence of high-tech trickery. Today, however, the Hong Kong case proves that the technology has matured from simple voice mimicry into full-scale visual and auditory impersonation that can deceive entire departments. The barrier to entry has dropped significantly. It is allowing criminals to manufacture authenticity at a scale never seen before, making digital trust an increasingly scarce resource. The technical execution of the Hong Kong heist required more than just malicious software. It required a deep, invasive level of data harvesting. The anonymous cybercriminal group spent weeks, perhaps months, gathering every available scrap of digital footprints belonging to the UK-based CFO and the other high-ranking officials. They scoured YouTube for public speeches, LinkedIn for promotional clips, and corporate webinars for recordings of internal presentations. These public assets provided the essential training data for their generative AI models to learn the unique cadences, gestures, and facial quirks of their targets. The most alarming aspect of this operation was the shift to real-time rendering. Unlike a pre-recorded video, the digital avatars used in the video call were able to respond to the employee's questions in the moment. This implies the hackers were using sophisticated low-latency processing to sync the deepfake overlays with a live actor's movements or a text-to-speech engine. Behind the pixels, there was a carefully crafted script designed to exploit human psychology and corporate loyalty. The attackers didn't just look like the bosses, they spoke like them, using specific corporate jargon, referencing real internal projects, and maintaining the professional pressure expected within a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation. They utilized business email compromise not as the end goal, but as a critical reconnaissance tool to map the company's social and financial architecture before the digital masks were ever donned. This allowed them to understand exactly which strings to pull to ensure the employee bypassed verification and followed the fake CFO's commands. As the investigation by the Hong Kong police force unfolded, the sheer scale and novelty of the crime began to shock the global community. Acting Senior Superintendent Baron Chan Shun-ching provided chilling insights during his public statements, emphasizing that this was a landmark case in the history of cybercrime. It was the first recorded instance in the region where a victim was manipulated by deepfake participants simultaneously during a live interaction. This shift in tactics has left many traditional security protocols obsolete. Yet, while the Hong Kong authorities have successfully made arrests, detaining 6 individuals connected to various deepfake-related scams, the primary architects of the heist remain at large. These arrests often target the money mules, the individuals responsible for providing the bank accounts that served as the landing zones for the stolen $25 million. However, the masterminds operate across borders, hidden behind the anonymity of the dark web and sophisticated encryption. The statistics are equally grim. Data from the FBI and Interpol indicates a 35 to 50% surge in AI-assisted financial fraud over the last 12 months alone, once the funds were dispersed into those bank accounts. The aftermath of the $25 million heist sent immediate shockwaves far beyond the Hong Kong harbor, serving as a brutal wake-up call for information technology departments worldwide. It revealed that the most advanced firewalls in the world are ultimately useless if the human gatekeepers are compromised through their own eyes and ears. For the unnamed finance employee, the psychological toll was devastating. He found himself at the epicenter of a global debate over whether this was a case of human error or a terrifying new form of technological victimhood where no reasonable person could be expected to succeed. The trauma of being the one to press the send button on 15 separate transfers, believing he was serving his company faithfully, left a permanent scar on his professional identity. Meanwhile, the multinational firm faced a sudden and severe crisis of confidence. The breach was not merely a massive financial loss, it was a reputational catastrophe that threatened to undo decades of brand building. The findings from Acting Senior Superintendent Baron Chan Shun-ching highlight that this incident was a landmark moment, as the firm's Hong Kong branch office became the site of a heist that utilized 5 local bank accounts to siphon wealth toward the shadows. This incident effectively signaled the definitive death of the age-old philosophy that seeing is believing. In the wake of the theft, the global security industry has pivoted toward a new frontier, acknowledging that visual and auditory confirmation is no longer a sufficient basis for financial authorization. Corporations are now racing to implement zero-trust architectures, where every single request for a fund transfer is treated as a potential threat, and regardless of the seniority of the person making it. This includes the mandatory adoption of multi-factor authentication that bypasses digital screens entirely, such as physical hardware tokens or out-of-band verification via encrypted offline channels. Some organizations have even returned to analog methods, establishing internal safe word strategies, secret phrases or non-digital passwords shared only in person and never recorded on a network or spoken over a digital line. These linguistic keys serve as a final line of defense, ensuring that even the most perfect deepfake avatar remains powerless without the correct verbal code. The battleground has also shifted into the realm of AI versus AI. As hackers use generative models to create deception, security firms are developing detection software designed to spot the invisible flaws in a digital mask. These defensive systems analyze physiological markers that are impossible for current AI to replicate perfectly, such as the subtle changes in skin blood flow, known as photoplethysmography, or the specific rhythmic patterns of human eye movements. They scrutinize metadata and network latency for any sign of real-time rendering or artificial synthesis. However, the criminals are equally motivated to improve their tools, seeking ways to minimize the computational fingerprints their models leave behind. As detection algorithms become more sophisticated, generative models become more hallucination-free, creating an escalating technical struggle where the margin for error is measured in milliseconds. On the legislative front, week the Hong Kong heist has accelerated calls for stricter regulations on generative AI tools. Governments are now discussing mandatory watermarking for all AI-generated content, making it far easier for automated systems to flag manipulated media before it reaches a human target. Yet, the borderless nature of cybercrime means that local laws are often insufficient. While the 6 arrested individuals represent a small victory for the investigation, the core architects remain anonymous. There is an urgent need for international treaties and enhanced extradition agreements to track and prosecute those operating in jurisdictions that currently offer them a safe haven. This is an international arms race that requires global cooperation. Looking forward, the primary lesson of this $25 million illusion is one of constant vigilance. The heist was a demonstration of a power that will only grow more refined and more accessible. We must update our personal and professional protocols, realizing that no one is too smart or too experienced to be deceived. Whether it is a call from a boss or a video message from a loved one, the digital world now requires a level of skepticism that borders on the edge. The Hong Kong heist was not an isolated incident, but the opening salvo in a new kind of war, one where the weapon is our own perception, and the only shield is a refusal to trust what our eyes tell us without a second layer of truth.